Hello, it's John Heaton, and today I'm going to review this album, Give My Regards to Broad Street, from Paul McCartney, 1984. Kind of putting off reviewing this because it's not his best record by a long way. And for those of you who think that most of my reviews are positive, this one's not going to be so positive, I'm afraid. So this was the follow-up to Pipes of Peace from the previous year, and we all heard rumours about the Broad Street movie project, and amongst the the fans hanging around Soho Square, we were all quite excited. And then I forget which came first, the album or the film, but both were quite disappointing. I'm just trying to think of some positive things to say about the movie before we get on to the album, and I'm really struggling, to be honest. It's quite a depressing watch, and it doesn't really hold your attention. It's quite boring, I'm afraid, despite having Ringo in it as well as Paul, and various actors like Ralph Richardson make an appearance. But it's a bad plot about Paul losing the master tapes to an album and trying to recover them. And he kind of tried to do most of the script writing himself, whereas maybe he should have employed someone to write a better script. George Harrison is on record as saying he quite enjoyed the film, but he thought it was a mistake for Paul to try to do everything himself. By the way, I read that George Harrison does not appear in this film by mutual agreement. So perhaps Paul asked him to be in it, and George said, I don't think so. I'm not sure what happened, but anyway. So the album came out, and it got to number one. I guess because Pipes of Peace had been quite a big hit the previous year, and people may have been attracted by the fact that there were some old songs on here. But didn't do too well in the US. It was number 21. By the way, before the album came out, there was a superb lead-off single, No More Lonely Nights, which to this day is one of Paul's classic ballads. So a good start, and I have the 12-inch single of that with the picture, which I haven't got to show you, this picture of Paul, which is actually a better cover than this. This is quite a bad cover, really, in my opinion. Paul dressed up on the back for the Silly Love Song sequence. So let's go through the album. No More Lonely Nights, great single, and then we get the first of a few Beatles songs which Paul covers. And the best word I can use to describe these covers is pointless. You're never going to improve on the originals. In fact, every version of a Beatles song on here is inferior to the original, and in some cases quite a bit inferior. Good Day Sunshine is reasonably well done, quite polished, but basically trying to be the same as the original, which is not a bad thing, but just as I say, pointless to cover it. And Yesterday, again, I think he put them in the film to make it maybe more commercially appealing to people. But it didn't work in the case of the movie anyway. By the way, I remember at the time of the movie's release, Paul going on to Channel 4 News, I think it was, and having an interview with Peter Sissons, who he went to school with, and trying to defend the album. So that I remember that, and I remember a program called Spitting Image in the UK, which used to take the mickey out of politicians, and I think Paul McCartney was portrayed as a turkey, implying that this project was a turkey. So some quite cruel stuff. But I have to say, probably well deserved, most of it. These are pictures from the movie. Ringo is in it, as I said. So Yesterday, yeah, pointless. Here, There and Everywhere, even more pointless. Not sung very well by Paul. I mean, it's okay, but it's missing that delicate touch of the Revolver version, Wanderlust is he's just re-recording a track from Tug of War a couple of years earlier, and whilst I prefer more recent material for the movie, I don't really play this album because, you know, I prefer to hear that song in its original context on Tug of War, and the same with the Beatles songs. Ballroom Dancing, the same. Quite a decent version, and maybe it works reasonably well in the movie, but I don't go to this album to listen to this song. Silly Love Songs is quite an annoying kind of updated version with some guy playing the bass, whereas the highlight of the original was Paul's bass line, so I don't know why he felt the need to get to some flashy guy to play a flashy bass line, and all a bit pointless, I'm afraid. So we move over to side 2, and then we get a couple of new tracks, which probably the best sequence in the movie is when he's playing the new tracks with Eric Stewart in his band and Ringo. Not Such a Bad Boy and No Values, two rockers. The former, Not Such a Bad Boy, is quite decent, nothing great, and the No Values, I'm afraid, is quite dismissible. He woke up and he dreamt that there was a song called No Values by the Stones, but then it turned out there wasn't, and so he'd written this song in his sleep or something like that. But it wasn't a Stones track, and if it had been, it wouldn't have been a good one. And I'm afraid Paul doesn't really do much to make this a good track, although the sequence in the movie, as I say, is quite enjoyable when they're doing these songs. For No One, another pointless Beatles cover. He's playing 4 tracks from Revolver on this album. Eleanor Rigby is the 4th. The only good thing about this one is Eleanor's Dream, the sequence at the end of the song where Paul and Ringo are dressed in 19th century clothes and they're down by the lake, and with Linda and Barbara, and the boat goes towards the waterfall, and it's quite an effective sequence. That is one of the better parts of the movie. And then we get Long and Winding Road, which was quite nice to hear, because it's, you know, I think the original album version is a little bit drowned in the strings, so it's good to hear a kind of solo version from Paul, and it's quite nice harmonies on one of the verses. I think this, along with the Wings Over America album, is quite creditable. I don't have a problem with him doing this song. And then No More Lonely Nights comes back in the form of a play-out disco version, and it's terrible. I hate it. It's so inferior to the ballad. It's unrecognisable. It is virtually the same lyrics. But yeah, he should have just stuck to the ballad, I'm afraid. So I have to say, I don't watch the movie, and I don't reach for this album much, and it's probably the low point of his career, if I'm honest. Thank you for watching. See you next time.